Hello, everybody. It's your old pal Todd at Kerns. Today brought to you by Lanakai Ukuleles. Rockers like me play Lanakai. Today, a very good friend of mine, fellow Canadian, one of the busiest human beings I know, wrestler, rock star, actor, podcast, author, the list goes on. One of my all-time favorite people on the planet, Mr. Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho. Early in the morning, Chris Jericho.
Well, I mean, early for you. I mean, what kind of a rock and roller are you? It's like not even 9 o'clock your time.
Dude, I've been up all night. That's when you're...
Here's the problem. So I'm in Jacksonville right now.
That's right, yeah.
Because we have our live show every Wednesday.
That's right.
And after the show, there's always kind of a little bit of a hang going on. But I was like, I'm serious. It's like, I got to be a little bit responsible because I'm doing Todd's show tomorrow at 11:30, which is not super early, but if you stay up till 6 a.m. hanging out with everybody.
Yeah, I know.
I came back to my room at about 5 and then proceeded to, dude, I'm not even kidding. I just proceeded to watch Street Hard videos.
I know, I was getting the texts about that.
I've been going through a huge phase of like, there's this great collection of Street Hard live concerts there's one from 79 and one from 81, and it's the same venue. And Kenny Shields is wearing the same outfit. Which is so great.
Must have been his A-list outfit. Like this is the TV show outfit right here. Yeah.
I'm thinking either it's one of those things. Either he had one that he just wore all the time, or he had a closet of like tight red shirts and designer jeans.
Exactly. Like that's his like his Paul Stanley 77 costume. Just like
it's like Richie Rich.
Yeah, but, exactly.
But yeah, so happy to be here and excited to do your show. You've had a lot of great episodes and
yeah, well, I mean, the main thing I wanted to get into, and this is why I'm so excited to talk to you, other than being my friend, and most people know that we sort of are in contact on a regular basis, getting Street Hard videos sent to me at 5 a.m. No, because the whole purpose of this, and I've never really had any sort of mandate about it or anything like that, but to me, I was always sort of, I wanted to sort of, that guy who's always wanted to do something off the beaten path, you know what I mean?
Right.
And most of it, I've been talking to musicians, which you are also a musician. But I find your story, you know, I can understand almost every other sort of format of person that I talk to, but the wrestling thing, sports in general, I've never been a sports guy, but the idea of deciding I'm going to chase this thing down, which sounds crazy challenging in so many facets of it, because it's not just athletics, it's, you know, the showmanship involved, which of course is a big part of what, I mean, the rock and roll thing has never been more obvious until you came along, that sort of parallel between, say, the David Lee Roths and the Paul Stanleys and, you know, and into the wrestling world, which I was always aware that's what you were doing. I don't know if the average person really grabbed that right away, but I just think it's an interesting, to me, it's the equivalent of saying, even though I know it happens every day, today some kid has decided I'm going to be a wrestler. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. To me, it was sort of the parallel of saying, I'm going to put a cape on and fight crime. You know what I mean? It's like, just sounds like almost as crazy, unrealistic, but I'm wondering, you know, we'll get into your youth and all that, but I'm wondering where your fascination and where you're actually like, I'm going to do this. Like, I've always been appreciative of your ambition this way.
Well, the thing about it too, Todd, is like, okay, so it's funny because we're just getting ready, and the timing of this is really cool, is October 2nd, and today is September 24th. Mm-hmm. October 2nd, like 8 days from now, or whatever it is my 30th year anniversary in the wrestling business. My first match ever was October 2nd, 1990 in Ponoka, Alberta at the Moose Hall.
Cowboy Chris Jericho.
What's that?
Cowboy Chris Jericho.
Chris Jericho. Yeah, exactly. So throughout the last, it's interesting. I've made a list of every match that I've ever had, starting on October 2nd, that I wrote down on October 2nd, 1990. So I have, it's actually right here. So I've been dealing with it over the last few weeks. last few months of putting together kind of a book and showing people, like, it's, you can't see it, but this
Yeah.
piece of paper right here is 30 years old. At the
Holy
top of it, that
cow.
first writing on it is 30 years old. So I'm putting
Wow.
together a book of every match that I've ever had and all the pictures and photos and, memories surrounding it. So my point is that in 1980, whatever, when I decided I wanted to be a wrestler, there was no internet and there was no websites and there was no. How do you do this? All I had was this mindset where I really loved wrestling and I really love music and I want to be in a band and I want to be a wrestler. And how do you do that coming from, you came from a smaller town than I did, but Winnipeg's a pretty small town. And this is pre-technology, World Wide Web era. So it was about like literally writing letters, reading wrestling magazines and finding ads in the back for the Hart Brothers Pro Wrestling Camp and send a self-addressed stamped envelope, and 6 weeks later you get a reply. So that was always something to me that it's very different now, obviously. But for me, it was even more crazy because this is great. These are things that I want to do. But how do you do it?
Right.
How in the fuck do you do it? Right.
Yeah.
So right off the bat, you had to have real passion for this. It was like forming a band back in those days. You had to basically meet some kids in school and
yeah, absolutely.
Thankfully back then not everybody, but a lot of people played instruments. It's not even like that much now, but so it was more of the classic, Lennon meets McCartney at the church picnic or
right,
Lars finds James at the back of the Village Voice classifieds. It was a real different vibe back then. So if you wanted to do this, you had to have way more passion because you really had to work hard to figure out how to even get a foot close to the door, not even in the door. And I find that that's a big difference for guys of our generation because we're close to the same age. I remember reading Ozzy a few years ago. It's back in the day, if you wanted to take a picture with somebody, you had to bring your camera. And hopefully lucky enough you got it. Now, everyone's got a fucking phone.
Yeah.
I don't know who you are, but my kids love you. Can I take a picture?
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what I mean? It was so much more of a commitment then compared to now because how do you do these things? You had to be really inventive to figure it out.
Well, back then, because now there's in small towns and in backyards and in trailer parks, not to knock anything about trailer parks. I pretty much grew up in a similar standing, but they'll just set up a ring and they'll do their own thing. Was that a thing? Because I always think about it with acting or with music. It's when you're a kid, you find another kid who plays guitar and you play guitar with that guy. With wrestling, is it kind of you just kind of you and your friends are just throwing each other around, or is it more you actually kind of get into the athleticism and the
well,
that side
I got into wrestling in the 70s, so I'll be 50 this year. So when I was about 7 or 8 years old, actually earlier, because my grandmother, I think she passed away in 78, and I used to watch wrestling with my grandmother because she loved. In Winnipeg there was AWA, which was the company that was based out of Minneapolis, which is where Hulk Hogan started, and a lot of famous. And she loved wrestling, so I used to watch it with her because on Saturday nights was the big night of the week for a kid, because it was I used to call it the trio of whatever, the trio of cool shit, because it's at 5 o'clock was the Bugs Bunny Roadrunner hour. 6 o'clock was AWA wrestling. 7 o'clock was Hockey Night in Canada.
Yeah, exactly.
So you go to your grandma's house, that's
sit on the couch. Yeah.
Sit on the couch and watch all these things. And obviously grandma and everyone loved hockey, and they met in the middle so I could watch my cartoons, but wrestling was kind of grandma loves it, so don't say anything. And I just would check it out with my grandmother. And I literally still remember this, Jesse the Body Ventura. And he was so over the top, and he was the bad guy. And he has a dimpled chin. Yeah. And he used to wear a jewel.
Yeah, in his chin. Yeah. I remember that.
I remember that. This guy, and she.
This man's a governor now. It's you always
exactly.
Forget that.
Yeah. She hated Jesse the Body Ventura.
Yeah.
And deep down inside, I loved him because he was so fun and entertaining.
Feather boa, he was the whole thing. Yeah.
Everything.
Out of control. Yeah.
That's right, but I would never say that to my grandma because I didn't want to make her mad. So deep down inside, I was outside, grandma, he's a jerk. And inside, I'm this guy's awesome. Yeah. So that's kind of how I started getting into I really like wrestling. And my dad played hockey in the NHL for 10 years, so I liked hockey too. But I didn't. I never connected to it because of the New York Rangers. There's 5 guys, same jersey, same
Yeah.
outfit. Unless the guy was super, a goon,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
or the best guy in the team, you didn't know one guy from the next. You could read
No.
the names of the back of shit. I love wrestling, and I love rock and roll because, like you said, like I can see Hulk Hogan, this person, Nick Bockwinkel and Jesse Ventura, and I love the Beatles, and I love
Yeah.
Paul McCartney, I love
Yeah.
Van Halen and Ozzy Osbourne. Like I know these
Totally. Yeah.
guys' names, and I felt wrestling was a combination of the athleticism of hockey, but the originality, personality, and charisma of rock and roll. It was a combination of the two. So that's why I was always driven towards that side of things.
I can understand the appeal because it's such a spectacle. You know what I mean? Even like in those early days, we used to watch Stampede Wrestling from Calgary.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Ed Whalen would host that, and it
Yeah.
was sort of, and those are early days when you think, Ed Whalen. In the meantime,
in between time,
yeah,
it's a malfunction at the junction.
yeah, he was the best.
Yeah, he was.
But I mean, in those early days, you could see that sort of, my father-in-law was a wrestler back then, Murray Cummings. He's just
Really,
I think he was just Murray Cummings. He's a big dude,
From where?
6'4". He's from Hamilton, Ontario.
Wow.
He was on the Ticats, so
Mhm.
he's a big dude, so and he would tell me all the great stories, back in those days, and but those early days, it's even more like when you watch the film The Wrestler and all that kind of stuff, and that's sort of traveling from town to town. By the time you get into this at 19, which is staggering to me, so you found yourself going to Calgary and actually dealing with the Hart School, like that's. Because I watched the documentaries about Brett and all that, and they talked about this dungeon of torture that the Harts had created, and they would just show you all this stuff, and they wouldn't go easy on you necessarily. Was it anything like that?
Well, I mean, so I went, and by the way, the dungeon was Stu's basement. So people think like it's this big. It's literally a shitty little basement with pipes all over. It looks like something out of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, where Leatherface takes you downstairs to hang you on the meat hook and torture you.
That's even more horrifying than a
the
gym.
Ring was about this far off the ground. If you hit the side of the ropes at one side of the ring, you'd hit the wall. The wall.
Sure.
So, the vision was Hart Brothers Pro Wrestling Camp. The reality was not that. It was basically the Harts had stamped their name on it, but there was really no Harts involved.
Okay.
But still, like when you're talking about The Wrestler, the classic movie with Mickey Rourke. Anybody watching this?
Music by Slash, just so you know.
Really?
Yeah. Go back
Slash
and check
did
it out.
the music for that?
He did the music for that, yeah.
No
Crazy,
shit.
huh? Yeah. I've been meaning to go watch it again, just like for a number of reasons. It's an amazing film. But
I had no idea.
Yeah, weird, right?
But that, like, I know that guy. Like, I know
Oh, yeah.
dozens of that guy.
Of course.
Even when I started wrestling, like you said, at 19, there were guys there that, I mean, they're probably in their 30s, but to me, they were fucking, guys that I'd watched on Stampede Wrestling who had been to the top and now were working the same shitty bowling alley as I was,
right?
Making $50 for a payoff. So
right.
That movie is very close to what is real in the business, and you see it all the time, man. I mean, you've been very fortunate that you've been able to make a living as a musician. This is your job. What do you do? I'm a musician. Like, that's fucking rare. Listen,
that's why the movie works. Is it just the parable between it just being wrestling? It could be music. It could be anything. Yeah,
anything in show business. Because
absolutely.
As April Wine said, rock and roll is a dangerous game, as is wrestling, as is show business. So
absolutely.
You see guys like that all the time. Like, oh man, like, fuck, that guy used to be in, I don't know, that guy used to be in Faster Pussycat, and now he's, slinging hash at the diner or whatever.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Right. Like, so to be able to do this and sustain yourself as a living, like I've never had I have other jobs, but my main job pretty much has been wrestling since I was 19.
Yeah.
Fortunate, lucky, thank God for that.
Yeah.
But there's been so many other guys and some musicians that maybe were better than you, better than me.
Yeah.
They just never got the connection, never got the work. Like had you not been hooked up with Slash, your last 10 years would be a lot different from what
I might be slinging hash at the diner.
Exactly, right? So it's all about A, are you good enough? B, are you passionate enough? And C, are you willing to fucking do what it takes to make it and to stick around and stick with it, because it's not easy. I don't care
No.
who you are. How many actors in Hollywood were on a roll and fucking making money, and then a pandemic happens and it all stops? And same with you, dude. Musicians, it stops.
Yeah.
It's done. We're fortunate that we still work
It's a
every
big old
Wednesday.
reboot. Yeah.
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 And then you're like, holy shit, like,
Yeah.
where did all my gigs go? And when are they
Mhm.
coming back? And we don't know. Like,
No.
this is a part of history that we're living, that, 100 years from now, kids will be reading it. I was going to say in their textbook, but they'll be reading it online or whatever it is.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I feel that, like, when you're, like we said, a musician, actor, even wrestler, it's tough. And
I think what separates you though is your, I think that this example, I've known a million musicians way more talented than me, straight up, dude. Like I don't say that it was some sort of false modesty, who just, it didn't happen for them. And I think that you sort of embody a big part of it, which is the ambition and this sort of hunger. Cause it's not just the wrestling, it's the podcast, it's the author, acting, it's like you've managed to kind of you kind of live under the same thing that I do, where there's 365 days in the year. So if I'm wrestling for this many days of the year, what am I doing on these other days? And you've always been very good. And I think it's really a testament to really pay attention to that. It's not just like waiting around for the opportunities to present themselves, but going out there and making the opportunities.
Well, and that's the thing, Todd. And like I said earlier, when I decided that I wanted to be in a rock band and wanted to be a wrestler, I had, this is a 17-year-old kid telling his friends this. I remember dozens of people going like, you'll never do, like, what a dumb idea. This is stupid.
Yeah.
You might as well tell people you want to be a sword swallower in the circus. Like, what?
Yeah.
In 1990, to say you wanted to be a wrestler was like, who fuck, and you want to be in a band? Like, I read Arnold Schwarzenegger's Autobiography.
Yeah, that's a good one.
A few years ago.
Yeah.
And I got a lot out of it, even after I'd already kind of made it, because he was saying that he told everybody in his village that he wanted to be the biggest bodybuilder in the world and the biggest actor in the world. And they were like, fucking Arnold, like, dude, choose one of them to fail at.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And so here he does, and he makes it in both. So for me, when I did start making it in both, and obviously I have made it in both at different levels, but still, at FOZZY, we're now in the lower levels of big bands. Like, we can go tour with Slash and pull our weight, right? Which
isn't that band like 20 years old now already too? Yeah, I mean, that's mind blowing too. Yeah,
it is. So point being, once I made it in both of these things, now you become dangerous, because I'll fucking try anything.
Yeah.
And 9 out of 10 times it'll be a success, because I know how to do it.
Right.
And like we said, I know how, you have to stick with it. It's not going to be easy, but dude, I can do this. Like, I fucking made it in these other two worlds, and that's not from a big head standpoint.
No.
Sacrifice, sweat, blood, tears, beers, everything in between.
Absolutely.
So that's where people go like, how do you do all these things? It's because I think I can do it, and I know I can make it happen. So let's fucking add this to the checklist and see if we can make it work.
I think that's really cool to hear, because I think I'm one of those artist types where in reality I have sort of the opposite kind of thing sometimes, where it's like things like acting have presented themselves to me on a couple of occasions, and I because I'm so in love and so committed to music, I've always almost had more of like that'll never work out. Right. I do this, and I think that to hear you say, like, like you stare down a new challenge, like acting, like you've done acting too. And I always think, like, if one of those opportunities had presented itself and it turned into a 7-season arc of whatever, then you'd be an actor or a film franchise or whatever it is, because it's all opportunity. And that too, is it's like, you have an entire career as a wrestler, and it's weird to think of it as something to fall back on, something as fantastical as being a wrestler to fall back on. But any of these things that present themselves, you just happen to be very passionate about rock and roll.
Well, the thing is too, Todd, is that you have to be, because people say, like, how is it being, Chris Jericho? Did that make it easy to do FOZZY? Or like, no, it makes it 100 times worse.
It would be, yeah.
We had to work twice as hard to get people's respect. And only over the last 4 or 5 years, when we started getting some major radio play and started getting, that side of things. And as you know, I never realized how important rock radio still is. It's fucking important. It means a lot.
It does.
And, you know, to get that respect, we had to work twice as hard solely because I'm in the band. Hi,
Yeah.
I'm wrestler guy.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like I'm sure Jared Leto went through it with 30 Seconds
Sure.
to Mars.
Absolutely.
And, Pretty Reckless.
Mhm.
What's her name? I can't remember what her name is right now, but you know, she was Cindy Lou Who in fucking
in the Grinch movie.
The Grinch. So
Yeah.
how can she be a singer? So I find that you just have to not care and worry about what people think, because there's going to be people who like, he's an actor. I thought he was a wrestler. He's a musician.
Right.
I thought he's a podcaster. So you can't worry about that, and especially now with social media, because
No.
everybody's got a fucking opinion, and you have to have a thick skin. Because
do.
if you're gonna go on social media, you have to the people that call you the king shit of Turd Mountain, grain of salt. People that say, I wish you would fucking die.
Yeah.
Which I get sometimes. Like, really? You want me to die?
Then it's a box of salt. Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
check that one off
Yeah,
too, right?
yeah.
So you just have to be passionate what you do. And also, like I said, you have to have an open mind and think like, I can do this, and not put yourself in a box. And I worked really hard, you know, looking at guys like Gene Simmons.
Yeah.
And actually a lot of rappers were the first guys to do this. Like, you know, what's Beyonce's husband, Jay-Z, and these guys, they were doing stuff, Puffy, acting. And I remember watching this in the early 2000s and going, these guys are really smart.
Yeah.
They're building brands. So if one of these brands falls through, they've got a whole backup system.
Yeah.
If you put all your eggs in one basket and, you know, a pandemic hits and you got no gigs, you got to rethink it, you know, like for you, for example, I love your Instagram posts. I don't know how much time you put into it, but you're a great writer, and they're always super long, and it scroll down and scroll down and scroll down, scroll down. It's like, you should do more writing. Like, you're a good writer.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
If you're writing for a magazine or writing a book about your life or something.
I used to write for Penthouse Forum. That didn't work out though. Just kidding.
Were you the guy that went to the grocery store and ended up in the dairy section? That was my favorite.
Yeah, the milkman, that one was called. Yeah.
That's right.
No, so, but I think that you're absolutely correct. That entrepreneurial, you know, because I have a t-shirt company and this and that. And all of these things are just opportunities that sort of present themselves.
Well, what you've done too is you've branded yourself. Damn it! Like, what a great idea. I have 3 damn it shirts in my closet. Like,
there you go.
It's a great, like, you know, if you're looking at your band,
right?
Obviously it's Slash, but the second most recognizable guy is Damn It Kerns. Like,
oh really?
Smart,
the second? Okay, I'll take that.
Well,
take
behind
that,
Slash,
Miles Kennedy. Just kidding.
Seriously, it's true. You know,
well, I
it's
appreciate
like whenever you see Anthrax, Scott has done such a great job of branding Scotty, and he's the Anthrax guy. I bet you most casual fans think he's the singer. You know, he's the leader. He's the Anthrax dude, and that's there's nothing wrong with that. He was smart enough to brand himself. You've been smart enough to brand yourself, and people relate to that.
I think so, and I think it all comes from a pretty honest place. I think even for yourself, it's not like, I understand the gigantic showmanship, because the reality, you know, people don't want to see a wrestler who's, I mean, maybe they do. Maybe there is some sort of organic guy who's just this guy, but the whole thing is built on this gigantic, over the top. It's like
larger than life.
It's Kiss concert times 1,000.
Absolutely,
all that kind of stuff, and I've always appreciated that. So when you were a kid, was it guys like Jesse? And I don't know, who were the guys that made you go, I'm going to do that? I know because I'm going to quickly, before I say that, I know that you already had the David Lee Roth and the Paul Stanley and all that was kind of already in there. And then you kind of like sort of married that to this. Yes. I don't know, who were the guys that made you go, I want to do that?
Well, I was a big fan, like seeing the 80s is when wrestling hit its boom period.
Yeah, totally, right? Yeah.
In Canada, and especially Winnipeg, was a great wrestling town, because we talked about AWA earlier. It switched over to WWF, and then I was all in. So Hulk Hogan was the hugest one.
Yeah,
a huge Hulk Hogan fan. You know, and Macho Man Randy Savage, and
of course,
Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, and then watching Stampede, Owen Hart, and Shawn Michaels, and those types of guys. Mm-hmm. So to me, like, I loved watching that, but it was a different world back then too, because Hulk Hogan, who was listed at 6'8", 300 pounds, and I'm 5'11", you know, 175.
Yeah.
There wasn't a room for small guys back then. But when I went to wrestling school, I realized very early on, even with my first or second match, that, listen, I'll never be the biggest guy on the show, but I can have the biggest personality and the biggest charisma. And where did that channel from? It came from my obsession with rock and roll.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
I love wrestling, but I am obsessed. Like I can trivia with the best for music.
Oh yeah. And we've
I don't
done
know.
it. Yeah.
You know, you, me, and Frank Sidoris have had some great text chains of the most obscure of obscure. What was the one that we had? It was like, name a band who released an album with a title that then put out this title song on another album. Remember that one?
Yeah, that's a very deep reference. But
Sheer Heart Attack. And
those trying to think of
things. I think Houses of the Holy maybe is one of
them
or something like that. You know?
Yeah, a bunch of those. Yeah,
there's a few. Or name a band that had band name, debut album, and song on the album. Iron Maiden with the song Iron Maiden on the album.
On the album Iron Maiden. Yeah, exactly.
Black Sabbath with the
song Black Sabbath. Yeah. So, yeah, that's actually these are the kind of things that it reminds me of being like 15 sitting out in the parking lot at school just talking for hours about Rush or something.
That's right.
And it's basically what we're doing now as grown ass men.
And that never goes away. So my point is, I was always really obsessed with music, and I loved the charismatic frontman. You know, whether it was, we mentioned Paul Stanley, obviously, and Dave Lee Roth, but Bruce Dickinson.
Sure.
But fuck, dude, like I was my first band that I knew everything about when I was 10. And I'm not saying everything. Like I fucking was the Beatles. I had this book called Beatles A to Z.
Sure, I remember that
which
book,
had every most you remember it very most obscure, like who's Magic Alex and what is a dirty meanie and a blue meanie. There's different strains of meanies.
I love it.
I knew everything about fucking music. So then I got into Beatles. So then I got into Mick Jagger and fucking Freddie Mercury and watching all this shit. And dude, I remember I donated money at Live Aid the day it was happening and watching Queen at Live Aid and watching U2 at Live Aid, which is the second best performance of Bono. Palm of the hand, rock god, best thing ever.
Yeah.
I want to do something like this.
Totally.
Maybe it's not in a band per se, but I want to be this larger than life fucking godlike character.
Totally.
So starting in wrestling, once again, I can't be the biggest, but I can be a rock and roll frontman within the realm of this wrestling ring. And that's kind of been reciprocal for the last 30 years. I'm a rock and roll frontman in wrestling. I'm a wrestling character on stage.
Totally.
Because there's a lot of similarities of you have to connect with the audience as a performer, right?
Now, is that sort of cut you off, but is that a frame of mind type thing? Like, I mean, obviously you're Chris, you're a dude, you're a regular guy. You twisted your ankle when you got out of bed this morning, whatever, just normal stuff. But it is a sort of character. I mean, and you could say this about, because wrestling obviously is characters, but I think any of those rock musicians we're talking about, as soon as they get out in front of people, that it's almost like a character you step into or something.
Absolutely.
Like that. And so it's not like you just kind of wake up one day and, hey, I'm Chris and I'm going to be wrestling today. It's like, no, you have to go out there. You have a showmanship, a commitment to what this is. You're going to give these people a show, and you go out there with it's like you put on your boom, I'm Chris Jericho hat. Yeah.
You put on your armor, you know, like I remember like my very first match I had, I was really into Striper still under this day, yellow and black with tassels down the sides, and spent a lot of money at the time to have a cool looking costume.
Sure.
Because, you know, I remember so much goes back to the KISS model of, you know, how to make it. But I remember as Paul or Gene, you got to spend money to make money. Totally. And I didn't have any money, but I wanted to look like a fucking star for my very first match. Mm-hmm. And all of that stuff, it all added to this aura that you had. Even this green rookie at 19 years old, I still looked the part. I fucking looked cool.
Absolutely,
and whether my work was good or not as a rookie, it didn't matter because I looked like a star. And you're talking, I remember going to see Ozzy years ago at Ozfest, and fuck, dude, like they, you know, Ozzy, you know, he's shuffling around backstage like a little fucking, I almost think they took him into a tent and gave him some oxygen or something. It was at the PNC in New Jersey. And as soon as he crosses that barrier where people can see him, he's
it's a metamorphosis of sorts.
Yes.
Yeah, it really is.
Ozzy, and he's buckets of water, and he's go fucking crazy and clap your hands. Thank you, good night. Walks off the stage to where people can't see him, like he's gonna fucking die on the spot.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
and I remember watching that going, that's the. I mean, look at Slash. You know, good friend of both of ours. Obviously, you've played with him for years, but he's the most laid back, quiet, introspective. I just want to talk about dinosaurs and horror movies. And he gets on stage with the shades on and the hat, and he's the greatest guitar player, arguably, of all time.
Yeah.
You know, I remember when I jammed with Slash at the Whiskey for Lemmy's 70th birthday. It's one of the, it's just so stupid. It's one of the greatest moments of my career, and nobody filmed it. This day and age, everybody, I walk across the street, some fucker's filming it, but it was me, Slash on guitar, Scotty on rhythm guitar, Robert Trujillo on bass, Charlie Benanti on drums, playing Beer Drinkers and Hellraisers, right?
And Lemmy's watching. Yeah.
And Lemmy's watching.
Yeah.
Actually, he was reading a book.
Yeah, he used to do that a lot, actually.
He could have given a fuck. He was just there for everybody else. But and I remember, like, we extended it, so Slash got, I think, a 32-bar solo in the song.
That sounds about right.
I was right in his face, like, just fucking, like, just right in there, just clapping, and then just so into it. He would not look at me.
No.
As you know, for nothing. And I got the, like, holy shit, like, dude, he's so into his own world.
Yeah.
He's not going to look up, and, you know, usually you rock together or something. Nope.
Yeah.
Nope. And I was like, he is Slash right
now. He's in the zone.
Nothing is going to break this character, you know?
Absolutely, yeah.
So it was a cool experience for sure.
So how does that work?
Show me that there's characters on stage as well.
Yeah. I mean, Slash is more of an organic, you know, like that's just who he is. I mean, he is all those people, but we're all the people that we are. But so when you're 17 or whatever, are you already like bulking up, or are you already in the gym? Or are you already like I realize there's so much more of a commitment to being, you know, like a guy like me, if I sort of looked at wrestling and thought, I can't do this. First of all, I'm not really athletic. Second of all, I mean, I got the height. I guess if I put on like 100 pounds or like 50 pounds worth of muscle, then it might be the guy. But I was kind of like, it's such a commitment. Like, you're not just kind of like going to go out and make a fancy striper costume. You got to kind of like know the stuff. You got to bulk up. The hair is a real consideration. Like, everything is like is a real,
all of that stuff, because it's show business. And once again, like, I always took it very seriously. Like, you know, and there's guys, the business has changed. You know, you've seen it too. I remember, it sounds like I'm doing a lot of name dropping, but it's all relevant. We did a tour. I'm sure you guys did it when it was on Soundwave in Australia.
Yeah, of course.
Which was like a traveling stadium tour. And we were fortunate to do it with Metallica.
Yeah.
And the very first night of the tour, the night before, I think it was in Brisbane, Metallica had a giant barbecue for all the bands.
Wow.
And I remember standing there with Hetfield, and we've always got along. We don't have each other's phone number or anything, but whenever we see each other, it's always a cool conversation. And we were looking, and he's like, fuck, man. He's like, look at these bands. He goes, if I was putting together a band and any of these guys showed up, I'd kick them out before I even heard them play a note. He's like, what a bunch. Here's the word from the day. What a bunch of posers. But if you looked, and it was all at the time, it was all the short-haired rockers with the tattoos on the face, and the knee-level shorts and the muscle shirts that were low enough to just have these fucking man boobs hanging out. These are you know, 22-year-old kids, and they did not look like rock stars.
Right.
In wrestling now, it's like that too. But when I got in, you had, especially being a small guy, you better fucking look the part. So it was all about hair, costume, training every day. I gotta look good. And I remember before I went to wrestling school, I was like, fuck, I wanted to be like 220 pounds, but I was probably about 190. You know, you just can't gain that much weight when you're that young.
Yeah.
And I remember going and thinking, oh, fuck. I was just envisioning there's going to be fucking 10, 6'8", 300-pound bodybuilders here. And I went to wrestling school, and there was one guy who's in shape. His name is Lance Storm, who is a friend of mine to this day. The other guy that made it, and everybody else, fat guy, scrawny guy that looks like fucking Latka from Taxi. Like, and I'm like, what are these people thinking? Like,
that'd be a great character, actually, the foreign guy who comes.
But how do these guys? It's like going to a really shitty strip club in Atlanta and go like, what do these girls see when they look in the mirror? Like, what do these guys see when they look in the mirror? Like, fuck, dude. Like, you got to understand, like, if you're looking at this TV show of wrestling, you look nothing like that.
Of course.
I'm not tall, but at least I've got fucking arms and a chest that you can tell that I'm trying.
Yeah, of course.
And that's when I realized, holy shit, there's a lot of wannabes. And
that's actually good. That's a good lesson too, though. That kind of thing. Yes. It's like being in a rock band and going and seeing, when you go and see bad bands, it's as important as seeing good bands.
It is, because then you realize, okay, so if I really put in the effort and I really concentrate on the appearance, and obviously the work rate will come because I'm athletic, and more importantly, I understand wrestling because I've watched it for 10 years or 15 years.
Of course, yeah.
I can get a little bit of a jump on these guys.
Sure,
because
yeah.
if someone's going to book a couple local guys for their show, they're going to look at a picture and go, let's use that guy.
Yeah.
I might be the shits, but they're going to say that before they use the fucking Lotka guy.
Yeah.
So I already have a leg up, right? So
Right.
that's when I started, like you said, seeing a bad band. Like, I rehearse, I practice every day. We rehearse every day. So even though we're not as good as we might be, we're still better than that band because we can tell that band is half-assing it. So if it comes down to the local fucking pub gig, they're going to hire my band over theirs because we look better and we sound better.
Absolutely.
That's
my first trip to Los Angeles, I was probably just old enough to get in clubs. So I was probably 21. I can't really quite remember, but we had a whole thing going on in Canada.
Yeah.
So me and I think it was with a girl at the time, decided to take a trip down to LA and just,
it's always with a girl.
It's always with a girl. Exactly. And, I went to Gazzari's, which is no longer there. Don't look for it on the Sunset Strip. And it was like a Tuesday night or whatever. And I thought, and I was going to go in there and I was going to have my mind blown by just the local Hollywood talent. You know what I mean? Like, this is Motley Crue.
Like the next Van Halen's going to be playing. Yeah.
Yeah. Like this, it was like Van Halen has come from here. Motley Crue has come from here. That whole Sunset Strip thing was on fire. And I walked in there on a Tuesday night and saw probably the worst band I'd ever seen. And I mean, like, I compared to like every band that we'd seen across Canada. And it was the same kind of realization of like, I'm better than these guys. Yes. I can do this, And I think that that's important to see, that you have, that you can do this. And I think it's not, to me, like when I look at wrestling, it's sort of like, it's more like with music, I have a guitar and I do write songs. The end of the conversation. With wrestling, I look at it and go, okay, now I got to go to like commit to the gym. You hurt yourself all the time. I'm assuming that there's got to be like the risk of that. But
Todd, the thing is, I mean, you're and I'm not just saying this because you're here. You're a great musician. You can play anything. Like you said, we need a guy to play bass and slash. Call Kerns. He's a guitar player. Fuck, he can play bass. He can do it. It's not just because your good looks. Like, you obviously put the time in to. If I'm in the gym, I'm a singer. I show up with my microphone and I fucking sing either you can or you can't. To play guitar, you got to fucking practice.
Yeah.
To have, a good physique for wrestling, you got to practice, aka work out. So you're still putting in the same amount of time as I did. It's just that you were, in your different room playing guitar, and I was in the gym lifting weights, and both of our other friends were out hanging out, drinking at the club or whatever, where we're like, hey, you guys want to go out tonight? I got to work out. I got to fucking practice, work out. Come on, do it tomorrow. There was no doing it tomorrow. No. I'll come out later once I get this workout done the way that I want it to be. And after I go for a tan, and after I fucking, watch an hour of wrestling to just learn.
Studying.
That's how you have to be. Like, it's this, you have to do 10,000 hours of something before you become an expert or whatever it is.
That's absolutely the truth. Yeah.
And by the time I was 19, I was probably at about 2,000 hours just from watching and trying to learn as much as I could.
So the other thing I want to ask you about is the idea of the heel situation, right? And how much does that affect you on a day-to-day, even though the character you're playing or whatnot, when you've had periods where you've played sort of like, when you've walked out into the arena and everybody's booing you, which is, completely structured that way. It's not like you actually, because I know that there are stories of like, Hogan and Macho Man where they were opposed to each other, but that was, structured to be as such. Yeah. But I'm just saying, when you walked out to that, is there a different energy that goes into that? I mean, obviously there's a clearly different energy, but as a character and as a showman and an actor, is it like a whole other thing? Like, does it affect you in any sort of real way, or is it more like the fuel that makes you kind of like take that character even further?
Well, and you're going to love what I'm going to say. First of all, yes, you're acting. And when you're a heel, and a good heel, boos are your cheers.
Absolutely.
That's what you want, that's what you want to hear, right?
Absolutely.
And once again, you better be thick-skinned, because especially now, it's hard to be a heel.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you the reason why. It's a lot easier to make people hate you than to make them like you.
Right.
But it's even harder once they hate you to make them stay hating you. And here's the reason. I'll explain it to you that well, you understand it. And so everybody listening, the greatest villains of all time always end up turning into good guys. Darth Vader.
Yeah.
Hannibal Lecter, the Joker, the Terminator, Freddy Krueger. As you watch these movies going on, like had Heath Ledger not died, the next movie, the Joker would have been a good guy because he was so fucking entertaining.
Interesting.
Freddy Krueger was way more entertaining than the fucking idiot kids that he's murdering. After a while, he's like, give me one-liners, Freddy, and make me laugh. The second Silence of the
kill
Lambs.
all those kids.
That's right. Second Silence of the Lambs. Hannibal Lecter was the good guy. Terminator 2. Think about Terminator 2. Watch Terminator 1. Yeah. And Terminator 1 is terrifying to this day. It's fucking terrifying. And Terminator 2 is like the greatest good guy of all time.
Totally.
You know, there's only 5 years apart. What was the difference? Because the Terminator became a thing. And that's where, like, so as a heel in wrestling, I'm a heel now, and people are in on the gag and they get into it. But fucking 10 years ago, I was the type of heel, probably the last of my kind that was getting attacked on the streets. I got attacked.
Yeah, I know. That's
I got attacked in Madison Square Garden by fans, not in the ring, outside of the ring. People still believe that I was this asshole. And to this day, sometimes I'll still get like, fuck, man, like, you're really cool. Like, I wasn't expecting this. What were you expecting? I was expecting you to be a dick.
Right.
Why?
Right.
Because your character on TV. And I'm like, exactly. And Anthony Hopkins doesn't walk down the street eating people's liver with a fine Chianti. He's not really Hannibal Lecter.
But don't you think that there's guys, you know, like on soap operas? I remember my mother would watch soap operas, and I would once in a while sit down and go like, what is this? And there was always a Victor Kiriakis or whatever his name was, who was like this he was like this bad guy, you know, and you'd be like, this guy goes through life, he's this character for 30 years or something like that. And he goes to Starbucks, and it's like, he's got to have these like little, you know, like housewives going like, get away from my kids or whatever.
Yeah.
You know? But I think that there's something really magical about the idea, other than having to live with that, like yourself having to kind of deal with people in your day-to-day life thinking you're a bad guy. You know?
Well, and now once again, it's mostly kids that feel that way. Like there's some of my friends' kids that hate me because they watch the show, because you know, little kids are different. But once again, going back to your original question, that's my job.
Yeah,
that's my job on the show. You know, if I'm on a TV show and the role is to play a serial killer that, you know, kills fucking baby kittens, well, you're going to watch a show and go, I hate this guy.
Yeah, of course.
But you know, most people understand that you're just playing a part. But in wrestling was always this different shade. And I always say this, it's like wrestling is a lot like the show Seinfeld. I'm Chris Jericho playing the character of Chris Jericho on the show. Chris Jericho, the character, has a part of the real Chris Jericho, but it's not the same guy. There's a lot of exaggeration and embellishment to it. Just like Jerry Seinfeld played Jerry Seinfeld on Seinfeld. Not the same guy, similarities, but sometimes people get the two confused because the best characters are your real life personality turned up to fucking 11.
Sure, yeah.
You know,
and the best bad guys, like when you brought up Heath Ledger, I'll never forget watching that film for like the 10th time and having that sort of actual feeling of like, when is the Joker back on the screen? You know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
That movie was basically the Joker. You know what I mean? It was kind of like, and I think that that's the you know, that's how good he was. You know what I mean? And I think that's how good a bad guy can be, especially in the wrestling world where it's like, it's a love to hate and a hate to love. You know, you just
you have to have a great villain to have a great hero.
Of course.
You know,
otherwise, what's the hero doing? Yeah.
Sure. And if you think about that movie with Ledger as the Joker, I believe he was gone about 3/4 of the way in, and then it switched over to Two-Face or something like this. And you're like, fuck, bring the fucking Joker back, man. And I realized it now, but when we started talking about it, I couldn't even remember who played Batman in that movie. The movie's called fucking Batman or whatever it's called. Dark Knight. All I remember is the Joker. Heath Ledger. It was Christian Bale, obviously. But point being, once again, like I said, he was so deliciously evil that you want to see him more. And had he not passed away and they did another movie with him in it, they would have had to have made him Batman's fucking, you know, confidant or something. They would
have teamed up for some reason. Yeah. There's a script.
He's way more entertaining than Batman. And that's what a good villain does. And like I said, it's great for people to hate you, but it's very hard to make them keep hating you. And when I was the villain that got attacked on the street, I was able to fucking sustain it for about 2 years. And then after that 2 years was done, it's like, I got nothing left. And what do? Like any good soap opera, change into a good guy.
Yeah, and that's fascinating. How quickly do they embrace that? Like, how quickly does that? I mean, I would think that some. Like, I'm trying to think of who were some of the best villains in wrestling, because they always swap back and forth. Even Hogan, and Randy would, like, guys who were like gods would swap back and forth, and they'd be like, "Whoa, what happened here?"
Well, both those guys. I mean, that's the thing too. Like I said, it's easier to make people hate you than it is to like you. But
Right.
when they hate you so much and you turn, like I remember Randy Savage, he was a bad guy with Elizabeth. And when he finally turned into a good guy as a teenager, I was all in, man. Because you hate him so much. And whatever the twist is, like you said, what is it? All it takes is if Kerns is the big hero and Jericho's the big bad guy,
right?
And we work it to a spot to where there's something going on and you get attacked by fucking, Fitz, the fucking giant. And I punched.
This is a terrible match, by the way. I would never.
I punched Fitz the giant in the face, and we bump into each other. We turn around like this, and like, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. And then it's like the handshake, and it's like, and that's all it takes. And then it might take a little while for people to like, do we really trust this guy? But it's all storytelling, man. If you tell the right story, you can fucking change on the drop of a dime, like that. Boom.
Yeah, that's what's so beautiful about it, is the theater that I really love about it. And I would imagine the transition for you into music or into acting, you've already got all that. It's almost as if you've been in acting school for your whole life.
Absolutely. And that's the thing when people say, oh, you're acting now. It's like, fuck, I've been acting for 30 years. I've been playing a character.
Exactly.
I've been playing a lot of different characters. And that's why, like, I've had the great fortune of hooking up with Kevin Smith for 2 movies now.
Yeah.
And both of the movies, he cast me in like these kind of weird parts. Like Jay and Silent Bob Reboot, I was the head of the Ku Klux Klan, which is like, he's like, do you want to do this? I'm like, of course, you're not getting, people might come down. I'm like, once again, if you're going to come down on me for being a Ku Klux Klan leader in a movie that ends up getting sprayed with outhouse shit, it's like, it's a fucking movie. Obviously, you're not going to put the Klan in there and not have a, but and then the other one was, it hasn't come out. It's a horror movie called Kilroy Was Here, where I play the Gator Chaser, which is a guy, a very evil, terrible person who ends up getting eaten by an alligator. Spoiler alert.
Wow.
But once again, like he goes, like, are you cool with this? I'm like, fuck, I love this.
For a second there, I thought it was going to be like an actual retelling of the entire Styx concept album, Kilroy Was Here. Mr. Roboto. Right. Now you're talking.
Mr. Roboto.
Yeah, exactly.
So point being, it's like he's giving me these parts that are so great that go completely against what you might cast Jericho in.
Sure.
That's another. Like, you're acting now? Yeah, fuck, I act all the time.
Yeah.
And this gave me a chance to take the same concept of being Chris Jericho, but being the Ku Klux Klan guy or the Gator Chaser, all these different things. And once again, you're playing a part and you have to commit to it. Because what I was going to say earlier is to really make it in show business, whether it's music, wrestling, comedy, acting, whatever it may be, you have to connect with the audience.
Yeah.
If you can connect with the audience and make them want to see you, whether they love you, hate you, whatever, you'll always have a fan base. Always.
Absolutely.
And if you look at the biggest rock bands of all time, they connect with their crowd.
Absolutely.
And that's what it's all about, man. You have to look people, you have to look people in the eye and get them into it and get them rocking, get them, into what's going on. And if you can do that, they'll always come back.
Absolutely. And I think that translates into, like, it's not like FOZZY. I mean, what started off as what seemed like a fun thing, which I think it always should start as a fun thing.
Sure.
I mean, like, how many times have we been in situations where, like, I was just giggling about this because we just put up this new project called Minefield, and it's just literally guys from Ace's band and me sending files back and forth, and it turns into some music. So the fact that you guys have, again, 10,000 hours, you guys, like, the last record, you guys were like, that Judas song was like #1 on rock radio and stuff like that. It was like, it was so awesome to see. And I've always been, I've always been a really big supporter of everything you do when it comes to, well, all things that you do. It's hard to keep up, frankly. It's like, can he be awesome at anything else? I'm sure you start your own like cooking show, and I'm sure we'll kind of like get some competition there. But no, and getting to tour with you guys and seeing all that, it's so much fun. And there's always a sense of showmanship. There's always a sense of humor, as far as, it's like you take yourself seriously, but you take what you do seriously, but you can't take yourself so seriously. But again, showmanship, knowing how to kind of present a show, that there's a beginning and middle and an end. And
yeah, I mean, we our inspiration and what we try and be is Van Halen in 1979, 1980,
totally,
which it's a fun show. Roth is cracking jokes and they're smiling, they're laughing, like, oh my gosh, they're having fun.
totally.
But the fucking music is going to kill you. Like, it's fucking great.
Yeah, I
And
know.
we're not Van Halen, but we have the same idea. And the other one was Queen at Live Aid. We don't have props. Your band is the same, Slash's band.
Yeah.
We don't have a fucking dragon coming from the ceiling. We don't have pyro,
No.
anything like that. We are the show, so we
Yeah.
better make it count. And that is by including the crowd, including the audience, sing-alongs. Fucking FOZZY is a strange name when you first hear it, but it is the absolute best name to chant. And every show we play, FOZZY, FOZZY. Because
Totally.
even people that don't know who we are we like, FOZZY, FOZZY, what is this, FOZZY?
Yeah, exactly.
So you have, once again, you have to have that attitude. This is a fucking rock and roll show.
Yeah.
We're here to have fun.
Yeah.
That's what we want you to do. Is it
Absolutely.
always perfect? No. Is it always fun? Yes. And that's what it should be.
I always think that there has to be that, because there's a lot of us, that it can be serious music. You go to a Slayer show, it's a good time, but it's a different kind of good time. You know what I mean? It's like, it's a super intense
Very
show.
Powerful. Yeah.
I'll never forget us standing there getting ready to go on stage. I think you were going up to play, and you're so much more of a colorful person, and the band is so, animated and all that kind of stuff. And I remember you just looking at the three conspirators and going, so you guys are wearing black tonight? We're all standing there in our, this is just what we wear.
It's like, if it wasn't for fucking Frank's curly hair, you'd look like triplets.
Yeah, I know. It's like the Ramones or something. But it's a similar idea. You put on your uniform. It's like, I take off these black pants and put on some other black pants. Yeah.
Dude, it's the classic AC/DC backstage where Malcolm Young takes off his blue T-shirt, puts on his fucking black T-shirt, washes his hands, and ready.
Yeah, goes on stage, exactly.
But let's, once again, though, if you're talking about the conspirators, like that's the look of the band. It looks great. Slash is very smart, much like Ozzy. Ozzy, he's the star of the show, but he always surrounds himself with great quality, energetic musicians, so he doesn't have to fucking shoulder the load by himself. Slash is the same. Yes, he's the star of the show, obviously. Yeah. But fucking Miles is great. You get to sing. You guys look cool. You play great, smiling, laughing. It's like watching you guys play with Bruce Kulick on the Kiss cruises. It's fun. It's fun, dude.
I'm so happy we're talking like this, because a big part of me recording with you now is sort of kind of like filling a void that we would have been hanging out together on the Kiss cruise this year. That's not happening, which is such a drag.
Listen, it is what it is. Like I said, we can lament it till the cows come home. Nothing's going to change, but next year it's going to be a fucking great year for all of us.
Absolutely. It's going to be a big one.
And I'm going to be in the front row watching Bruce Kulick, the Bruce Kulick band, playing my favorite Kiss era, which Kiss won't touch anymore. But you guys fucking just rock all of it.
I know. We talked about that on every different thing, Kiss platform that I do interviews with. We always talk about that era, and your name always comes up. That's Chris's favorite era. I'm like, yeah.
Well, once again, and we put together a band with we call ourselves the worst super group of all time, in that the drummer from Luke Bryan's band, who, by the way, a fucking stadium country rock guy,
of course, yeah. PJ
from Trickster. Guy called Joe McGinnis, who did a project called Classic 78, which, if you haven't heard, if you're a Kiss fan, it's Kiss tunes. Wait, music that sounds like Kiss from 78, and it's all original. It's fucking crazy. Have you heard it?
Yeah, it's great.
It's really great. So we formed a Kiss 80s cover band called Quarantine, with a K, during the pandemic. And we released No, No, No from Crazy Nights. Yeah. And put a little bit of steam behind it. Yeah. And it's now the highest charting single from the Crazy Nights record. Reason to Live was number 34. Crazy Nights was 37. No, 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 number 25 on the fucking chart. Amazing. And the best part of all is that Gene, it's a Gene song. He was like super, like, that's great. I sent it to Paul. He goes, congrats, and then sends the puking emoji. I was like, classic Paul. Classic. Once again, like, what are you going to do during a pandemic? Like you just mentioned with your new project, we got to be creative.
Absolutely.
Let's do this Kiss thing. Let's do it right. I've never even met Joe McGinnis. I've met him on Zoom with you, and we have a fucking top 30 single, and we've never met. That's the modern era of how to put together a rock and roll band, kids.
But I know that it would take more than a pandemic to slow you down, because you're always got, you're kind of like me, but I always kind of look to you and go, I feel like I got to step it up, because I've always got something going on, but you seem to always have like something going on, next level going on. So I appreciate that kind of energy. What shirt are you wearing, by the way? I keep wanting to see what.
Sorry, dude. I never would do this, but like I said, I just kind of got up. It's a Jericho shirt.
I love it. Amazing. That's old school. I love it.
Once again, you got to be a heel to fucking try and pull something like this off.
I love it. Hey, David Lee Roth wore David Lee Roth shirts.
Of course. Great story. And then I got to wrap it up with you.
No problem. Yeah, I'm cool.
Billy Sheehan told me that Roth would always cut his Eat 'Em and Smile tour shirt like this. And wherever he cut, like Billy was here. So Billy was always cut out. Like he just wanted to cut here, not on purpose.
Right.
So Billy collected all the little Billies and then got the seamstress to make a fucking cloak with all the Billy faces on it.
Brilliant. That's amazing. Well, thank you so much, my brother.
It's crazy. I just realized we've been talking for over an hour.
Have we?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Okay.
Which is that shows that's the
This is easy though. Like I said, the standing out in the parking lot at 7-Eleven talking about Kiss for, since we're 13. It's like that's how this goes.
It's what we do, man.
It's what we do.
And that's
But I've always, I really appreciate you digging into that, because there's nothing weirder than kind of like, hey Chris, tell me about, your wrestling career. Because I only briefly touched on a number of things that I want to, your podcast, your books is a whole other thing. Part 2. We'll do a part 2 someday. Then I'll talk about it.
Man. Anytime. Yeah. Like I said, it's one of the things that, thank goodness, the pandemic happened in 2020 when we have Zoom and StreamYard and FaceTime. If this was 5 years ago, we wouldn't be seeing anybody or doing anything. At least now we can still be creative and do shows and give people something to watch, some content. We love watching, me and a couple of my friends watch Took Talk, which is great. Like I said, you have to put an age limit on the guys with the technology.
I know, God.
How about Lips Tutu and the Hooded Fits?
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Everything he said. It's like Newt from Hercules.
Yeah.
That's still one of my favorite episodes of Talk is Jericho, when we talked about Canadian TV shows.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
Hercules
and all that stuff. The Wizard of Oz cartoons. Yeah, dude. We didn't even get into the Canadianisms on this, but yeah, I know. I really appreciate you hanging. I really do. And I can't wait to see. I would ask you what you got coming up, but I know you have everything coming up. So I'm assuming you've got a bunch of things coming.
Yeah, dude, like we've just been fortunate that we still work every Wednesday night. That's one of the things.
I know, that's awesome.
However reason wrestling was deemed essential in Florida.
Yeah.
But,
I love it.
We have a TV This is why sports are like, people are like, oh, fuck, the NHL's got no fans. Why are they even doing this? I'll tell you why, because they have TV contracts that need to be fulfilled. Same with AEW. Had we not been able to do these shows, we would have been in big trouble, because you have to provide a live show, original content every Wednesday night. That's how they make their money.
What kind of audience are you having?
We're doing good, man.
Yeah.
We're doing good. We're fucking. We've actually gone up over the last few months, even with minimal people in the audience.
Times like this, people are desperate for entertainment, dude.
Absolutely. And we just started allowing fans into the venue. It's an amphitheater here in Jacksonville. 6,000 seater, and so we've had 500 people are allowed in, socially distanced space.
Sure.
Dude, that first night we had fans after 6 months of no fans, even though it was 500 people, it felt like fucking Madison Square Garden. It was
I bet. Yeah, I bet. I can only imagine. Yeah.
And so, it's one small step to getting back to whatever the new normal is going to be, aka just playing fucking shows and doing,
absolutely,
having crowds to enjoy stuff. So
from your lips to God's ears, my man.
Yeah, exactly, man. So, dude, it's been great talking to you.
You too.
Pleasure. And anytime you want to do it again, let's do it again.
Let's do it. Love you. Take care, man. Say hi to the fam.
Thank you. Same to yours.
Bye-bye.